Hey guys, it's me, EODGamer here. Now, you've seen the title of the video. I won't waste your time. I'll get straight to the point. Breach rings are no longer the best in class rings of version 0.2 and beyond. They are quite a nice ring to have in your middle late game environment because they give you a lot of stats. But if you're talking about super end game, in fact, the best ring for 0.5, it's going to shift away from breach rings, and the value of breach rings drops significantly into this other ring over here. I won't waste your time. I'm going to show you exactly what it is. It's in my stash over here. There are many varieties of this ring, but the one that I like the most is these rings over here. These rings modify the prefixes as well as the suffixes. If you think about the importance of rings in this patch, is resistances are great, they are quite nice. Stuff like this where you have triple resistance on a breach ring looks quite nice. But in actual fact, a lot of us are looking for resistances in the belt as well as boots and stuff like that in this patch because ingenuity is not as meta, and the flat stats like flat attack, for example, this T9, T8, T8 line in 0.2 is much more important, especially since the meta classes scale off of it. Previously, attribute stacking was meta in 0.1, so the suffixes matter a bit more. In this patch, attribute stacking is way more inefficient. That's why your Astromantis is also not superly overpriced in demand this season as well. So what becomes the meta? It will be something like this. If you look at this ring over here, this Pinumbra Rings, they allow you to have 5 prefixes. This combination of attack is not possible on any other ring other than these fancy rings. So number one, you can get a 4-line, for example, this one over here, T8, 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 T7 line on a Pinumbra ring. I spent a lot of resources getting this as well. It's very difficult to get, very difficult to control, and it gives you a lot of damage. If I was luckier, I had more resources, this maximum mana line could be accuracy rating or even could be lightning damage percentage as well to boost the numbers up even higher. But 4 flat damage line is still quite decent for other classes that are not specifically playing lightning damage. It's quite generalistic a ring in my opinion. So the only last line over here, the last suffix, is very versatile. You can get all attributes, you can get a high roll and an attribute, or you can get all resistances, chaos resistance. It's not extremely key for the suffixes because you can find it in your other pieces, your boots, your belts, which have a lot more options nowadays. So that is why this ring is super meta. To give you an example, I didn't really get lucky with my rolls, but this is what it will look like on a perfect ring, assuming everything was max rolled. You can get a max roll lightning damage over here. You can get a max roll physical, max roll fire or cold. You have a max roll accuracy, max roll damage, as well as an elemental resistance in the last line. This would theoretically be the perfect ring for 0.2 because everything is top tier, right? So you get everything tier 1 and you get the highest damage possible. To put it into perspective, let me bring up my tooltips damage number over here. I'll take off this chaos ring that I have. Let's look at 2 things. I have galvanic shards, which is a lightning based scaling item, as well as explosive grenade, which is a fire one. This ring over here is currently going for quite a bit of money in the market as well because of its T9, T8, T8 and triple resistances. And it's a great middle to end game gear, but it's not the best because resistances can be found elsewhere. I'm a ritualist as well, so I multiply whatever numbers are over here by 25%, even without ingenuity belt. So let's take a look at the numbers. I slap this on. This is one of the highest that I go, T9, T8, T8. So I slap on this. You can see my numbers are 6, 8, 9, 3, 9, 3, 8, 7, 1. Now I'm going to take this ring over here, which is technically not perfect because I have 1 line short. So this is not the end game ring. In comparison to this one where it's T9, T8, T8 and triple resistances, which is very close to being almost there already. So just look at the numbers. I'm going to swap it real quick. You can see the lightning damage increases and the fire damage increases marginally as well for the explosive grenade. And if you are a lightning based class, you will really like this ring a lot more because of the modifications. But this just shows you that the amount of potential that is in a Pinumbra ring. Now, of course, this is a really super good ring already. That's why the discrepancy is not as significant. But if I show you, for example, I swap out a ring like this one over here with like maybe just 2 low lines of flats with some other nonsense, you can watch my damage numbers shoot up. And basically from like explosive grenade from 93,000, it goes up to 105,000 just by swapping my rings out. And that is a massive amount of increase from these rings. If I have, for example, these 4 rings over here, being a ritualist class, I don't scale with accuracy rating, but if I did scale with accuracy rating, then the numbers will be even more drastic as well. So I'm going to go ahead and slap on this ring. You can see now it goes up to 103k, and I take on this ring, I slap it on over here, 115, and I slap on this last ring over here. I'm at 112 with 8,000 plus just from 3 Pinumbra Rings, which gives me so much stats in the suffixes multiplied by the ritualist bonus, and the numbers are really, really crazy. This is the endgame ring. So I want to show you also the prices. I don't want to just like talk about how good it is. Let's just go into the screen over here, and I'm going to share with you what is good to look out for, what is the thought process, also what rings do you want to check out. If you're watching this video early also because you're subscribed, you have notifications turned on, you might get a lot of these rings at very undervalued prices. Once everyone else starts coming in, the prices will definitely be very different. So what you can do here is just select all 4 lines, which is not possible on a breach ring. You can click search, and you can immediately see it starts from 5 divine regardless of what tier it is in. So there's nothing cheaper than 5 divine right now. You notice that there's also a dust. There's 2 versions, dust ring and Pinumbra ring. Pinumbra gives you 2 more suffixes, whereas dust gives you only 1 more suffixes. The one that we want for rings in this meta is the Pinumbra, because you can get 5 lines like this one over here, everything that is very desirable. For example, in this meta, let's say we want to go for lightning damage percentage, which doesn't scale with the attack catalyst, but it's still quite decent as well. So we'll just search this, and you can see it starts from 58 divines regardless of what it's looking for. So it's very, very tough to get a 5 line perfect regardless of what it is with a 4 lines flat. So it's an insanely good ring. Now, more so than that, importantly, I want to share with you the level of the ring does make a difference. So if I show you the discrepancy over here, I click Pinumbra Rings and I show you anything that's level 80, 78 and above, notice a difference in price. I don't even filter for any of the stats over here, just 78 and above rings. You will see it starts from 1 exalted, 2 exalted. You can pick it up for very cheap, 2, 2, 3, 5 and stuff like that. The way to roll this is very similar to breach rings with a bit of additional steps. I will share with you guys in a later video. You need a bit more resources to craft this ring because it's much harder to get and snipe the right ones. So 78, you notice it starts from a couple exalted. But if I bring it down now to 76 to 77, we have a 2 range. It starts from 7 divine. I'm not even filtering for any stats over here. Just for level 76 and level 77 rings, it's very difficult to find a cheap one. Here it starts from 5. And I go for anyone online because maybe you might say it's just the people who are online. You search right now offline, these guys have listed this for 11-15 days, so they are not coming back anytime soon. And you can see the prices are so drastically different from previously. So why is the prices so different? And I'm going to share with you now. You go into Craft of Exile, a site over here. Notice that the minimum level requirement to get a very, very nice roll is in the flat damage is 76. You need 76 to get a max roll physical, 76 to get a max roll lightning as well. And of course, fire is 76. Coal is the only one that is level 77 max roll. So that's why level 77 gear is very expensive. This is very important is because if you are doing your omen strategy, you don't really want to be stuck with a max roll rarity early on, because then you can't omen or whittling it away if you're looking for a 5 line perfect. You also don't get rubbish, for example, like chaos damage max roll, which is useless for an Amazon user that wants lightning damage and other stats. So you don't get stuck with chaos damage as well. You still can get lightning damage max, which is a 76 line. That's why 76 and 77 are highest in demand, because you get rid a lot of the difficult high level stuff in the prefix as well. At the same time, you can still get the best in slot suffix, which is arguably going to be all elemental resistances. Level 15 to 16 all elemental res for everything. You can also still get your attributes, your all attributes here, plus 13 to everything. You can get your dexterity, you can get your strength and intelligence with 77. That's why level 77 Pinumbra Rings are the meta. They're the best in slot. Lowers the amount of combinations and odds of it going wrong. Makes crafting very cheap. That's why it's so expensive. But for me over here, I don't have that tons of resources to go and craft all level 77 rings, because they cost like multi-divines just for a base. So I crafted a level 79 here. Still not too bad. It's quite cheap to find a base. And we crafted a pretty nice one. So you can still get good ones here. But of course, it might be a bit more expensive to craft because of the number of permutations and combinations, excuse me. So the last thing that some of you at this point, maybe if you are not convinced, if you're convinced, great, but if you are still sitting on the fence, why is breach really going to be better and stuff, let me just give you one more thing to think about. If you take a look at these two rings over here, other than for the fact that this one has maximum mana, which is not damage accretive, the only difference between Breach as well as Penumbra, other than the lines, is attack modifier here plus 20%. So what you're giving up is basically a 20% modifier on 3 lines, which is equivalent of 60% attack stats of 1 line. In exchange for this ring, you are getting 120% line and potentially another 120% line in the prefix. So 2 additional lines plus 20% each versus just a modifier of plus 60% on these 3 lines. So it's very, very massively different if you're talking about the difference. So that's why your Pinumbra Rings are so much more efficient this patch for this current meta. It changes every single meta because depending on what the classes use, if it's back to attribute stacking, we will use a different ring and stuff like that. So these rings are top tier right now, and if you have the resources, you might want to hoard a bit of them. The reason why they're so rare is because you can only get them from trading, or of course from the Fractured Lake in this domain over here. The takeaway is get into this Fractured Lake with a level 77 node so that you have a highest chance of getting a Penumbra at 77. That's the biggest tip. Don't run this with a tier 15 and stuff like that. You brick yourself. So that is my biggest advice, biggest takeaway. If you found this video, we'll be doing more videos teaching you how to craft these efficiently. How do I get so many of them and yet still have so much resources? I also teach you how to get your first Divines, first Mirror of Kalandra in this league and every league thereafter. Check out the channel for more information, and see you guys in one of these 2 next videos.